and we let him in. When you're up,
Let him in.
when you're down,
Let him in.
when you're bound,
Let him in. Let him in.
We say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
Well, good morning. Slip one in on me, Pastor Oswald. Welcome to At the Round Table with Mammy. I'm your host, Larry Ellison, and Dr. Bradley's off today. He is actually not the doctor this morning. He is a contractor, so he's doing some work around the house this morning, so he won't be joining us. But we're going to try to get through it. Pastor Hobbs here with me, as usual, engineering. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you?
By the grace of God, I am well.
It's a little warm out there, Pastor. I feel like we're going into spring, but I know it's just a false sense, of optimism there. But the last few days, I'll take them.
I'll take them, yeah.
I'll take them, especially when they're talking about people's heating bills are going to be going through the roof. I think this month you'll see when you get your December bill with November, 64% in some instances. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. We want to thank our sponsor, Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guarantee Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston, Mass. Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. Pastor Hobbs, before we go any further, sir, would you mind prayer?
Absolutely. Father God, we thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercy. We're so grateful to know that you are, again, are all powerful, all knowing, and a very present help on the time. May bless this broadcast, bless us all, and I'll be careful to give you the praise and the glory and count this as done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Again, you're listening to At the Round Table with Mammy. I'm your host, Larry Ellison. A lot going on this past week, folks. In case you missed it, we had an election here in Massachusetts, and in some states, we have an election that is still going on. We're going to get into that. But before we do, I want to say a hearty good morning to Mr. and Mrs. Harry Scales, avid listeners here. Also, Brother Jamal Crawford and our sister Denise. I know she's been listening on the weekends there, and hopefully we're going to get her back in the studio, at least come in here and guest co-host one of the broadcasts. Miss that, sister. Love you much, and appreciate all you've done to help us there, Mammy. In fact, some of the work that she worked with me on is now, a lot of it is bearing fruit. So I want to say a hearty good morning to her. Also, a hearty good morning to some of our other avid listeners. I know Cliff is usually out there, as well as Dick. I want to say good morning to you, gentlemen, as well. And while we're there, I said, we have to take our frequent flyer miles and get out there and say a hearty good morning to our brother Bridgeforth down there in the home of the Jacksons, Indiana. Here we come. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the broadcast. And all our avid listeners out there, it's funny, I run into people, and I went and ran into my colleagues last week, and we weren't live last week. And he thought we was like, Larry, I was trying to call into the show, but I couldn't see you on the air. I said, that's because I was not there. So, folks, like I said, you give us a call. We are live today here in studio. Like I said, we're going to be here for the next few hours, holding it down here, and want to say a hearty good morning. And thank you for all your support. Like I said, we do this with you. We do this for you. We are here. This is a voice, not just our voice. This is a voice for all of us. So, take advantage of it. If you have something you want to discuss this morning, like I said, we want to talk a little politics here, because this week I was very nervous about how things were going to turn out, not just here in the Commonwealth. Massachusetts is a Democratic state, so I knew that there wasn't going to be much of an issue there. But around the country, and some of the races are still too close to call, but I know, excuse me, like early this morning in Arizona was just called for the Democrats. So now we have a 49-49 Senate. There are two outstanding seats there that will decide the control of the Senate. And people say, well, why is that important? I live in Massachusetts. Well, as we've seen around the country, the Senate is the ones who confirm the judges. And we saw the last time when Donald Trump was in office, that was with Mitch McConnell, who was the president of the Senate. He just focused on confirming judges. Care less about anything. Confirming judges and passing a tax cut for rich millionaires. And those were both successful and we're seeing that's courts now who have a mandate, and a lot of them from the Federalist Society. So we, for people's rights, whatever side you're on, we see that the Dow decision, the Roe v. Wade, was overturned in the Supreme Court, and there are a lot of other things. Affirmative action is on the docket. LGBTQ rights are on the docket. So things that affect you here in Massachusetts don't just stay in Massachusetts, and it's important that you get out and vote. I want to say that I had to work the polls this week, and I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was going to be a slow day. Folks were coming in there constantly, Pastor Hobbs. It was really heartwarming to see. And what was even more heartwarming was the number of young people who were first-time voters coming in. They have a little tradition at some of these places and there's a huge round of applause when they find out that someone is a first-time voter. And it was going off all day long. And I'm telling you, I normally... there's days I work the polls and I'm there at 7. I'm there earlier, but the polls open at 7 and I'm there till 4 o'clock. And I'm lucky if 100 people show up. When I left there, they had over 500 people. That is quadruple what I would normally see in that time frame in our communities. And I usually try to do the same location. So that was very encouraging. I just hope it's not a one-up. That's the problem with us, is that, we don't sustain. We complain, but we don't sustain, and we have to sustain if we want things to change. So I want to hear your voice on that. The calling number here is 617-282-0685. This is the number 617-282-0685. Did you vote? There were some ballot questions on there as well. I know it passed by a slim margin. On question 4 had to do with driver's license for illegal aliens. That passed. Folks will be able to, get a driver's license, providing the proper documentation. Even if you're not a legal citizen of the United States, you'll be able to get a driver's license here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. On question 1 had to do with the millionaire's tax, which only affects people like Pastor Hobbs. We'll have to pay another 4%. That did pass. And, they said the money's going to go for, construction and for schools. We'll see if that it's only supposed to be used for that. We'll see if that remains what it will be used for. So that was passed, and the one on the dental, forcing insurance companies that take out dental coverage to make sure that money is now more of it is spent not just on administrative, but on actual cost benefit for the people who are paying into the premiums. Because I tell you, a lot of these plans you have. The copay is so expensive. The only thing you're really paying for is to have insurance, but most people don't utilize it because they don't have their portion to pay. So that hopefully will bring that cost down for folks. But like I said, there was an election here in Massachusetts. Overwhelmingly, we will have our first all-female, not all-female, but the Secretary of State will be a male. But at the top of the ticket, Massachusetts will have the first elected female governor, and as they were touting around the country, the first openly gay female governor in the United States. And we have a female lieutenant governor, and congratulations as well to our first person of color, female, Andrea Campbell. It will be the next Attorney General for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So history been made in a lot of ways this past Tuesday here in the Commonwealth. But I was more focused, honestly, on what was going on around the country, and we still have a lot of work there, because, like I said, control of the Senate is really going to be key. And folks who are down in Georgia, if you're listening, if you have family down there, now is the time to call them up, get out. There's a runoff because in Georgia, you have to have 50% or more in order to win. And Raphael Warnock came in at 49% and Herschel Walker, which, like I said, this is more about the seat than it is about competency, at 48% of the vote. So they'll go to runoff on December 6th of this year. And so, that it could come down. Arizona, Mark Kelly won that one. So that was, he's a projected winner as of now. So that seat looks like it's going to stay in the Democratic side. So now we have a 49-49 in the Senate, and you need a 50 to have a majority. And it looks like in Nevada, that one there is still too close to call. If that seat is won by the Democrats, then it'll be a 50-50 tie even if they win the other seat in Georgia. And then the vice president is the president of the Senate. So Vice President Kamala Harris, will be the deciding vote if there is a tie in any votes here. So and realistically gives the Democrats the upper hand. They have the majority in the Senate, and it looks like it's still too close in the Congress that the Republicans may take that over that. And that's going to be a circus. You still have a lot of election deniers, that the Marjorie Taylor Greens and such, who are on the congressional side of the aisle, the Trump supporters. But a lot of the Trump supporters, as I was speaking to Pastor Hobbs on our way in, the ones who had to run in their states and their districts that were not just gerrymandered or predominantly red, they took a bath. Folks rejected that. I think folks are just tired of all the fighting and all of the naysaying and saying that your vote doesn't count. Now, that's just a temporary. I think they just have Trump deranged and they're just over it. And, I say Donald Trump is losing his mind these days. I saw his daughter is getting married today, and there was a picture of him walking her down the aisle at the rehearsal down in Mar-a-Lago. She's getting married today, and the capture was bride and gloom. And here he's not too happy because a lot of folks he picked did not, for the primary, when they were only running in the Republican side, he was able to get them across the line. But when other folks are now weighing in, they're saying we've had enough. So we're going to see. Like I said, all politics is local as well. And we have an election here every year. So we've got to make sure that we're on top and we stay on top. Like I said, I haven't seen the final results on what percentage of voter turnout. I know the Secretary of State was forecasting a low turnout here in Massachusetts. But like I said, I was pleasantly surprised, and I can only speak for where I was. I can say that turnout was a lot better. It could be way better, but it was a lot better than it normally was. So did you vote this week? And what's your outlook on the country? Because like I said, it's not just here there's going to be impact. We're seeing the ripple effect of what's happening around the country. And for folks that look like me, I'm not blind. I see folks want to take rights away from myself, people like myself, women, and other people who are marginalized and have been marginalized in this country. So I'm not going to sit back because, like I said, folks fought and died for us. And not just folks that look like me, but people in general, good people come in all colors, all persuasions. And that's what it's going to take. It took a little of that this week, and it was, like I said, I was glad to see that folks were rejecting a lot of this. I said, you're not going to take our rights away. A lot of women, like I said, a lot of young people. That was the factor that they did not factor in. They thought young people weren't going to come out, and their numbers increased dramatically. A lot more young people came out this week to voice their concern and voice their vote. But like I said, it cannot be a one-up. This has to be a consistency in there. So we are listening to At the Roundtable with Mammy. The calling number here is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685. So a lot happened this week. Also, what's been taking place, and we're going to bring it local here as we continue the politics, is the uptick in the violence here in the city of Boston. It's just heartbreaking. I mean, last Sunday, in the span of an hour, I think it's an hour, that 6 people were shot here. Some people are calling for a state of emergency. I know there's been a lot of talk from some community leaders. There's been several meetings and stuff going on. But I'm wondering, are we going at this as well with a consistent message? And are we holding our elected officials accountable and bringing all of us to the table for this discussion? We can't have closed doors meetings and saying we're going to exclude certain people, we're going to exclude folks. I get it. Folks want to talk and they feel like they want to have a conversation with folks who they haven't spoken to. But this is not going to be solved in a silo. It's just not. And folks were elected to do a job. Our city councilors, like I said, there was a meeting last week. They were discussing, it was at the bowling building that they had the hearing there on talking about, pay details and how civilians should have access to the details that are now in Massachusetts that are primarily performed by police officers. Whatever way you're weighing, if you get a chance to go to the city council hearing from November the 7th. It was really shameful watching adults on both sides of the aisle conducting themselves in that way. It was not productive. It was more like a Jerry Springer type of environment than anything productive. And these are folks who are saying at the city council level that we should give them a pay raise to conduct themselves in this way. It was just shameful to watch, and painful, actually. If you would think you'd want to have your kids turn in and watch our elected officials conduct themselves in a civil matter. The eye rolling, the name calling, just the total disrespect for any type of decorum was tossed out the window there. And if you attended that, if you saw it, I want to know what you thought about it as well. Like I said, we are in some very troubled times here. Like I said, there's violence going on, there's politics going on. Folks are holding their breath now to see how these last 2 Senate seats are going to play out. And realistically, if it's very too close to call in Arizona right currently, and if that seat is called for the Republicans, then it comes down to Georgia. And as Ray Charles said, Georgia is definitely on our mind. And we have to treat it as not just a Georgia problem, but it's going to be a problem for all of us. Because if the Republicans take back control of the Senate, nothing will get done for the next 2 years of President Biden's term. And the other side of Congress, if they are winning, Kevin McCarthy, who is advocating to be the Speaker of the House, all he's going to do is investigations of people who are on their hit list. I think people have really signaled. That's the problem. Republicans are not reading the tea leaves here. And people are saying we're tired of that type. We're tired of it. They're exhausted from it. And if all you want to do is have hearings for revenge, they're not interested in that. And hopefully, they'll see that during the next election. See, a lot of these folks that are continuing with this behavior are in very safe red districts. So they can do all of this. It's the ones that are not in just a red district that are going to have a problem with this behavior continuing. And even some of those, I think those folks are going to get tired of nothing getting done there. Because tell you what you want, in the last year or two, and when the Democrats were in charge, prescription care, the bill they just passed, it's going to lower insulin. We know that, unfortunately, diabetes is something that runs rampant in the communities of color. So to have your insulin capped at $30 or less a month, that's going to be huge for people who are on a fixed income and deciding whether or not they're going to be able to get their medication or pay for their increasing heating bills and some of the other things that are in there that allow folks to be able to survive. I know that the Supreme Court, not the Supreme Court, but the federal courts have just put a ban on the tuition with the forgiveness that the president had signed into law through an executive order, I should say. And they've said, no, they put the brakes on that. So, that would have helped a lot of people with that. So there's a lot that's going on, and it has to do with people being able to get elected. So we're going to take a quick break. And like I said, calling number here is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685 is the calling number here. You are listening to At the Round Table with Man. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
This is for the dream. This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer, 'cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard.
Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle
So if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog.
I wrote 300 songs in 1 year, Boogie will tell you I'm on it. I got unreleased songs for days, they don't want it.
eat any MC in the game. It ain't a challenge if your music reflects who you are, then use a coward. I can see through the lies you ain't living what you spitting. If your money's so long, why your dog's in prison? Why your baby mom's stripping? Why your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'? You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strap. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst, and the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer, cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard.
Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard, hustle
So
real
if I
hard.
never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the
Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard, hustle
I always
real
dreamed
hard.
I'd be on tour instead of laying dealers on.
All right, welcome back to At the Round Table with Mamleo. The calling number here is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685 is the calling number. I'm your host, Larry Ellison. Like I said, Dr. Bradley is off today. He's probably working harder today at home. He probably wishes he was in the studio. He texted me last night, Bassop. He said, I had to lay some sheetrock. I got some work. My wife has got me working around the house, so I'm sure he wish he was sitting here rather than there. But hey, got the honeydew list this morning, so good luck, brother. Good luck with it. Like you said, folks, the politics this week, we had a lot going on. As Pastor Howe just pointed out, Maryland has their first black governor. I mean, things are happening around the country. I don't think it wasn't this red wave that folks had predicted, and I think that was done. I think it had the opposite effect of what Republicans were trying to tamper down. People basically saying there's no sense for you to show up because the election is a foregone conclusion. And I think that drove the vote out more for people, because I tell you, I know a lot of people were very anxious about how this was going to turn out and what this country was going to look like going forward. Like I said, we still have a lot of work to do, but I think it gives you some optimism of hope that not everyone in this country, that folks have said, the election deniers and a lot of those folks were not victorious in continuing with this. As a matter of fact, you're seeing a huge crack. And I tell folks, don't count Donald Trump out, because he's risen from the death many a times. But I think this blow here is probably the one that stings the most, because the vast majority of the people that he supported lost. Mehmet Oz in Pennsylvania. Now he's blaming his wife, saying he didn't really want to pick her, but she was the one that wanted him. And even his statements the other day, when he was saying, if they win, I have all the credit. If they lose, they can't blame me. I don't. How do you take credit? But if for victory, but if they lose, it's not your fault. Well, and he's already blaming other people and attacking folks who he think may be the apparent heirs to the throne. Ron DeSantis down in Florida, and as well as the governor Duncan down in Virginia. He's already attacking them because they're being hailed as the apparent new leaders in the Republican Party, and he's already slinging mud. So, but this is what happens: you create your monster, and now your monster is coming after you. He's not satisfied with just attacking people with a D beside the name, or even people with an R who were in disagreement with him, like the Liz Cheneys, of the world, who had the audacity to stand up for what they claim they stand up for, is this Constitution, right? And Adam Kinzinger. So you created a monster. Now he's your monster, and he's your genie you can't put back in the bottle. And luckily on Tuesday night, a lot of folks have said pretty much they've had enough. They've had enough of it, and hopefully going forward, they'll continue with that. Like I said, there's one thing to argue and debate over disagreements about policies and issues, but this was clearly, in my opinion, about race and about class. And that's what the Republican Party, in my opinion, stands for today. It's not, the Republican Party of, they said, with, Reagan and them. They were not perfect, but, this was clearly a division, a divisive, to make America great. You wanted to make it a great for some. So I just want to read this piece that was in this week's Bay State Banner regarding the election. It says, Healy Campbell make history with wins. This is by Isaiah Thomas of the Bay State Banner. Excuse me. It says, while partisans across the country anxiously awaited the results of Tuesday's elections, Massachusetts Democrats were celebrating a decisive, historic win for their party Tuesday night. The victories of Massachusetts Attorney General and now Governor-elect Maura Healey represent not only the first time a woman and openly gay person has been elected governor of the Commonwealth. Healey's win also marks the flipping of the state's top executive seat to a Democrat for the first time since Deval Patrick was reelected in 2010, and for only the second time since Michael Dukakis' reelection in 1986. Speaking to a packed audience, Healey acknowledged the historic nature of her victory. Tonight, she quotes, with the help of so many, we made history. I stand before you tonight proud to be the first woman and the first gay person ever elected governor of Massachusetts or any other state. Healey said, tonight I want to say something to every little girl and every LGBT person out there. I hope tonight shows you that you can be whatever you want to be, unquote. Flanked by Lieutenant Governor-elect Kim Driscoll, Healey noted yet another historic milestone. With their election, she said Massachusetts has become the first state in the union to elect women to both positions at the top of the ticket. Meanwhile, with uncertain electoral outcomes looming across the country, Healey also framed her own victory as a sign that Massachusetts may play a role as a vanguard of a progressive American politics. She's quoted as saying, we are lucky to live in Massachusetts, Healey said. The people of Massachusetts tonight gave us a historic opportunity and a mandate to act. So we're going to ignore the noise. We're going to focus every day on making a difference in people's lives. Those goals, Healey said, include working to protect the environment and combat climate change, and protecting progressive values, including women's rights. As long as I'm governor, women will always have the right to control their own bodies, Healey said. Attorney General-elect Andrea Campbell, too, spoke to the historic nature of her own victory, both as the first black person to be elected to serve statewide. It's not lost on me that tonight is a historic night for many reasons, Campbell said. In Massachusetts, we don't just say representation matters for those who have felt knocked down and left behind and undervalued. This victory is for you. Drawing her own personal history, which includes the death of her brother while incarcerated, Campbell promised to push for meaningful criminal reform, prisoner reform, and juvenile justice, as had Healey promised to defend women's reproductive rights. Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who handedly won re-election to a third term, the first black woman elected to Congress in the Commonwealth, said the night's wins showed Massachusetts to be a leader in progressive advancements. Massachusetts is leading the change that affirms that representation matters, that leadership matters, that vision matters, Presley said. Tonight's historic electoral victories are just the beginning of Massachusetts. We take our rightful place as we show the nation what is possible. We will not listen to those who tell us that the advancement of the marginalized is a loss for those who are doing okay. We reject that false narrative. The reality is when one of us thrives, we all do. On a night of close elections across the country, Healey's victory was unsurprising, and after she won the overwhelmingly blue Commonwealth primary election, but Tuesday still registered as a potent moment for many. Healey is standing on the shoulders of every gay person since Stonewall, said Wayne Kurtz, referring to the 1969 riots protesting police raids on the Stonewall Inn in New York City. As a gay man who couldn't walk down the streets holding hands with a same-sex partner, Kurtz said, this is the moment. Malik Williams of Boston praised Healey's accessibility and openness to communities of color. There's always a disconnect between people in political positions and leadership positions and then the community. And when the community, Williams said, when it comes to local music and films. Williams said a lot of those jobs aren't going to people because of lack of education and a lack of communication. Destiny Henchado of Brockton said she volunteered for Campbell's campaign because she believes in her values. There are real life issues that Andrea feels that we feel. He said, I'm excited to see what she does about returning citizens. I'm excited to see what she does about recidivism programs. I'm excited to see what she does with prison phone calls. Sheila Graham of Boston, whose mother, Cheryl Harding, introduced Campbell to the crowd, said she was elated to see Campbell, as well as Healy and Driscoll, take the stage in victory. I followed her since she was the president of the city council. This is what we need to get the work done in Massachusetts, from her to Maura Healy to Kim Driscoll, all of the women up there, up and down. I've never seen this. I'm almost 60 years old, and I've never seen this. So this means a lot to me, Graham said. She had some of the same struggles. I know she'll make the difference. So, to the Attorney General piece, Pastor Hobbs, this has got to be something that's in your wheelhouse, because I know you spend a lot of time behind the walls and on the recidivism and getting people to vote. How do you think that having Andrea Campbell, now the Attorney General elect, will change what's at the AG's office?
Well, I'm hopeful that again, everything's been talking about through the lens of equity. So I'm hopeful that that the cabinet, the positions that they hire will be people that will reflect the diversity of the Commonwealth. And I'm hopeful that so many things that have been legal things that have disproportionately impacted Black and brown and poor folks, again, some of those systems will be put in place to be able to, again, facilitate even equity in those underserved populations.
Now, as it relates to the governor, Governor Charlie Baker, who's the outgoing governor, who decided not to run, and I think if he had run, he would have won easily. He's a Republican governor in Massachusetts. And not only was he the governor of Massachusetts, but he was the most popular. He had the most favorable ratings of any governor in the country. In a Democratic state. I mean, that says a lot about, and was able to get things done. So I'm just trying to figure out what the path is for because he worked well with the Senate and the reps here in Massachusetts, and now we're going to see the same thing. Now you have all Democrats all the way through. You have Democrats controlling the governor's office as well as the Senate, and then the reps. Are we going to still see that same type of working relationship with our new governor that we saw with our outgoing governor? Because things got done. I mean, it's not perfect, but the MBTA is finally seeing some improvement, some real changes. I mean, it's got a lot of work going, but everyone else just talked about fixing it, and they actually did something. I mean, it was shut down for 30 days, and most people didn't believe it was going to be just 30 days. They hit the number, and things are back up and running, and some people say improved, and still working on that. So I think they've got some big shoes to fill.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and given the fact that the Commonwealth is doing so well in terms of financially, with all just all the resources, after money, infrastructure money, and so again, my thing is about what with all the resources that we have, how do we leverage those resources to really do some of the innovative kind of things that are going to be structural. But to sustain, facilitate some equity and then have it be sustained. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It's just, will it be put into practice?
Well, yeah, that's the question.
Right. Because we see, I mean, one thing that clearly the state is not lacking in its funds, right? Because there's a law that was put in place several years ago, matter of fact, that if they took in too much in revenue, that they had to return it to the citizens, and that's what's triggered this year, is that they took in too much in tax money. So now everyone who's paid taxes should be receiving a refund in their taxes, and those things started going out last week. So like I said, money is not a problem, but this governor is going to have to come in and deal with what had started, where especially here in Boston, where the city was in jeopardy of having the state take over the schools. There's still a lot of problems, even though money is not a problem right now. We still have a lot of problems, and like you said, the mayor here in Boston has said that she wants more help from whoever's in at that state house to help with the problem down at Mass and Cass. That's going to also probably fall somewhat in the wheelhouse of our new attorney general. So I guess my question to you and to our listening audience is that what are your expectations from the new incoming administration, considering that a lot of people are not unhappy with what they currently have or with the current governor that's leaving. So I think they have a high hurdle to get to, because like I said, I think his approval rating was somewhere at 70%, Governor Baker. So how does Governor Healy, I mean, it's not like you're replacing someone who was unpopular. You know, he's not Donald Trump. You know, so how do they step into that role and fill those shoes and get down to work and making some meaningful changes here in the Commonwealth, because things haven't really been that broken. There are some things that need to be fixed, but there's a lot of things that have worked. And like I said, you come in the heels of a very popular governor, a governor who is a Republican, most popular governor in the country. I mean, that's a tall order to fill. And I have to be honest with you, Pastor, historically, when there's been a Democratic all across the board, and like I said, I'm an independent, and for those reasons, I pick person, not party, that, you know, when we had a black governor, I honestly didn't see our status move much, and I actually didn't have access. I had more access to Governor Baker's administration than I did with Governor Patrick's administration during my time as president of the Minority Police Officers Association. So it really opened my eyes to really people and not what they look like. And like I said, I'm wishing Governor-elect Healy and her team well, and I'm going to support them and work with them. I like her very much. But I'm just saying is that I'm not happy that Governor Baker is leaving. And not, you know, it's not like, oh, glad to see this person go, because it's been a very good working relationship for the issues that we've had to deal with. So, good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
I'd like to say, first of all, congratulations to Moore Healy and Tim Disco. And I have to push back on some things that you said.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, I want to say this. Moore Healy has no excuse to not give, I'll say this right here on the air, T. Michael Thomas the resources that this man needs to get his People's Academy up and running after almost 20 years, and having the last two mayors, Michelle Wu and Maury Walsh, not giving the man what he needs to help black and brown people to make the rise to the middle class and either get in the union or be non-union, no?
Well, to that point, sir, and look, this is a talk show, right? So, the money, the funding, the legislators are the ones who actually have control of the purse, right? So the fact that T. Michael Thomas has not received that funding, it really comes from our city council, our mayor, those folks there who have more control over that than the governor will. The legislators are the ones who do most of the appropriations. They're the ones who look at the money and decide, earmarks, all right? And so you have to ask the question, is that what state rep or what senator at the state house has advocated for T. Michael's Promises program, the People's Academy, to get that funding there? Like you said, they're flush with cash. This is not a cash problem. This is a commitment problem. This is, are we going to help this worthwhile cause? And so really, I'm not saying that the governor should not be involved in the discussion process, but really the representatives that represent that district that would be impacted by that should have already have had this done. Really should have been just the governor there as a ribbon cutting ceremony.
I understand perfectly. But we just there's always two sides to every story, yeah? Mm-hmm. I have to hear the second half of why the state representatives and the legislature doesn't want to help T. Michael get his People's Academy up and running, no?
Well, let's talk about that.
I think that, again, this is my opinion. Mm-hmm. I think that they have some type of hidden agenda that they don't want to see a successful black man who really doing real well to help his community here and black and brown people to get into the building trades so they can have a nice, established middle class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm going to be the devil's advocate in that, and I'm gonna agree with you at 50%. But the other 50%, right, is that we know that unless the community demands it, and the demand and the vote, like I was saying earlier, I was encouraged by the number of young people that were voting for the first time on Tuesday, and that if you probably look overall in our community, I hope that wasn't a one of, and that the number increased, the numbers were up when it comes to communities of color voting on Tuesday, right? But when we don't come together and we don't demand better, right, we don't get better, right? I'll give you an example of that. I don't know if you've even noticed this, and most people haven't because it doesn't impact them, that there was a ruling in the last couple of weeks in the state court, and Judge Wilkins, who ruled that the police exams for promotions here in the city of Boston, in the Commonwealth, were discriminatory, and that this precedent had been going on for over 50 years. A very scathing decision that he came down with, right? And if you get a chance to read it. Now, this impacts a lot, not just police officers, but it impacts anyone who wants. And it's been silenced from our elected officials at the state and local level as to how they're going to address this issue, because it's a huge issue. Because of this decision, the fire department announced, the state announced the other day that they're going to cancel the upcoming fire promotional exam and entry there because it has the same qualities of discrimination in it, according to them. So it's almost an admission of guilt that what they were doing was very similar in the discrimination. Again, if we're not going to come together on issues that not just impact us personally, but others as well, and that's why we've been very supportive at MAMLEO. I know I have, the current administration and the one that preceded me have been supportive of this program, but we haven't got much support from our elected officials because our community has not been supportive of this worthwhile program. That's where they're lacking, because if the community is demanding it, and at a time when there is so richness with funds at the state level, you couldn't find a better time to get funding. I mean, the fact that they have to give back money to taxpayers because they took in too much says that this is not a money problem. It's just a willingness. And you're right. A lot of it has to do because any T. Michael's program would then show that someone that looks like him can put together a worthwhile program, and that would cut into some of these other organizations and unions, right, and trades that have these pipelines that people are making money, and then they control who gets to go in, and they also control that these folks are paying dues into their union. So you're absolutely right. But my question to you is, what's the community going to do to address this problem? Not just T. Michael, not just those of Emmanuel and those few that support him, and not just people like yourself, who I'm happy to hear advocating for him, but what's the community going to do? Because I've been at a lot of these community meetings with T. Michael Thomas about this issue, and most of the folks in the room it's crickets, or they're there supporting something in opposition.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Did you
Good morning.
did you want to respond?
No, yeah, my question.
You bring it very and very good morning.
Well, stand by. I want to get his response to what I just said, and then I'll bring you into the conversation.
Okay, no problem.
Yep, go ahead. No, stand by. Yep, go ahead.
My answer to your question is, when you have for so long a community that has been economically deprived and conditioned along being trained to stay in that miserable situation, that when the community is finally sick and tired of being sick and tired, they're waiting to the last minute to be reactive instead of proactive like they should have done years ago. This is the result. So I'm not putting the community down, but I live in the community, so I know for experience this is what the community gets. Mm-hmm. And it's sad that we do have good people in our communities that want to make a difference, but at the same time don't know what the next political or correct steps will be, and getting to our politicians' ear to say that, okay, we need T. Michael Thomas's program for us to be better.
Right.
But until that happens, we're going to be in the miserable rut that we have been for years.
Right. Right. But to that point, Colin, I want to bring out the caller in. To that point, but then these same folks keep getting reelected, right? Who are not delivering, right? But they keep getting reelected, and a lot of times they're running unopposed. So what we're saying with our silence is that we're satisfied with the status quo, and we won't challenge the status quo to change. We don't force it to change. I mean, the city councils got together and unanimously voted for a pay raise for themselves, right? They couldn't find anything wrong with that. They thought what they're doing is worthy of so much more money, right? That they felt they needed to come together. Like I said, somebody's in the background. Unanimously to vote themselves a pay raise, but yet they can't come together to find and carve out some funding for a program such worthwhile as this, and no one challenges them on that.
And that sends a message to people like me who are working middle class, looking at getting a minimum wage job, saying, "Wait a minute, we don't care about y'all. Y'all can just think for yourselves. So
right.
We're happy to get our own raises. So.
Right. There's no one in the city councils that should be making their base salary should be more than frontline workers, firefighters, and police officers. And I'm not saying that because I'm a police officer, but there's very little risk you take being a city council.
Hello.
You do, being out there on the front line. Stand by, call. Good morning, Rose. Welcome to the round table. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Good morning. I'd just like to, harp in and say, I agree with you in what you're saying, that, you can't give up the fight. And if, like that poem that they said, like in the walls of Auschwitz, first they came for the people, these people, then they came for those people, then they came for me, and then there was no one left to fight. If we don't unite as a people, and you say get together, like just because the issue doesn't affect you directly, doesn't mean. And I wanted to talk about the fact that you mentioned the fact that Andrew Campbell, historically, is one of the first black women to win statewide office. And the fact that she personally has experience as not only as someone in an administration, but also as someone that has been, her brother was, died incarcerated. So I feel like there's going to be fundamental change and look at what's going on. And that is crazy. And then that court decision about the police exam being skewed and being racist, and that's, it's awesome. It's sad that it was going on for this long and finally came out.
I filed that lawsuit against the city. That's one of many I filed against the state and the city, right, with our legal counsel, right, during my tenure. And I've been out of office as president of Mamleo for almost 4 years now, right? And I filed that early in my time, and I spent 10 years. So these things take time. The unfair drug test, the laundry list is long. And again, if we're not going to come together, we need to take a page out of the Ukrainian people's page book, right? Through all they went through, they knew what history had done to them, right? And they weren't going to stand for it. They would rather die on the battlefield than to be prisoners inside their own homes, to be prisoners inside their own country. And they were fought, and they're running the Russians out of there, right? The Russians are retreating now. We have to take a page out of, when Ditka was talking about, history has not been kind to black people in this country, right? But one thing we did do, we came together and we fought for our rights. And I see we're living in silos, and we have this individuality. We're not working together. Even now with all this going on, we're looking, it's like they said, the definition of insanity. We're looking for elected officials to solve our problems in our community, and we're on the ground. What's happening a lot of times in our communities would not be tolerated, nor should it be tolerated in other communities, right? But yet, we have people who run on the premise that they're going to make things better for us. And then when they don't, we don't hold them accountable. So they said, you get the government you deserve.
I agree.
If I'm not going to be honest with people, there's no sense in me coming in here. I'm wasting your time as well as mine. We're not going to change by waiting for elected officials. Even if the city council and the mayor wanted to help us with this, that's less than 20 people. Right, all together, right? That are elected to deal with this problem, and most of them are not on the front line. Most of them are not out there engaged in a way. I'm not saying they're not engaged, but in a way that folks are on the front line. And honestly, I find it disrespectful that a city councilor says that their base pay should be more than mine, and I'm out there on the front line. And that they can vote themselves a pay raise, and when people
and the fact that you said they voted unanimously,
right?
That they didn't have fun.
Right, but also the fact that all the other city contracts have not been decided yet. I mean, that's just it's just mind-boggling that you put yourself in the front of the line, to make more than everybody else, and you're doing less than anyone else. And folks don't have a problem, don't see anything with this. Where's the outrage from the community saying, wait a minute, you want to pay raise, and we're talking about crime. We're talking about our schools are in disarray. We're talking about mass and caste, and most people would be fired if if their job performance, that was the list of accomplishments, a lack of, would be fired. And yet you're saying give us a raise? How do we conflate the two? Am I missing something here, folks?
The apathy.
I can't hear you.
No, I just say the apathy. You know, just people are like, you know, you just got to say, don't give up the fight. You know, like you said, the whole.
Don't give up the fight. We're not even in the fight. That's the problem. We'll give it up. We're not even in it.
Well, people already think, well, I don't know what it is, but it's like, it is very alarming, the fact that it's like how much more can be happening or how much more can they see. And it's unfortunate, like I found out that there was like 40% or 50% of kids don't get their news. 40% or 50% of kids don't get their news from regular sources.
No.
They get their news from.
Yeah.
You hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, there's someone in the back.
Hello.
Yep. Okay. Call a standby. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Hello?
You finish up what you're saying. Someone keeps
No, I was
saying.
going to say that the fact that children aren't getting their news sources from credible places, that they're just going on the internet and it's what's based on Facebook, TikTok, or on Twitch or whatever. That's where they get their news.
Right. They know more about Kanye West than they knew about what's happening in their streets, in their communities, right? Or what's going on in their children's school. And there lies the problem, right? We want to be entertained and not educated. And if we keep on, this is what we get. We're entertained, right? How's that working out, right? How's that bettering your situation? So Rose, stand by. Caller, do you want to have anything else you wanted to add to that?
And when it comes to city council having a pay increases, which is a complete shame because they used to brag about or congratulate people that are first responders, the firemen, the police officers, the ambulance, everybody that put their lives on the line to make us be safer on the streets and at home. And for them to just do this, it's just a big slap in the face for any first responder.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with you, and not because I am a first responder. But I mean, the fact that you would be voting yourself a raise when you have so many city contracts that have not been ratified, that have not even been decided, you have not even put them to the forefront, right? You want to be the first one at the trough to feed when all the other folks who out there doing the work, officers are being all forced to work 3 shifts in a row. Folks are, and yet you just get to go home. You get to decide what's on your schedule. First responders don't get to decide which calls they take. It's just, for folks to not see that, whether you like first responders or not, this is about fairness. It's about fairness. No one calls not 311 when there's a problem. They dial 911.
Yep.
And we don't get to decide whether we're going to deal with the problem or not. We have to. That's what we take an oath to do. And most people proudly do it. And even not having had a raise, they still go out there every day and they show up every day. And yet folks who come in for a few minutes every now, and I disrespect, even if they're, most of them show up late and leave early. And most of them, their staff are the ones that if any work gets done, it's usually done by them. They take credit for it. We have to start holding folks accountable, not just police officers, firefighters. We have to start holding our elected officials accountable, just like we do. If someone disrespects you in a uniform, people have no problem calling, filing a complaint, and want to hold them accountable, wanting them fired. We need the same thing with our elected officials who are not doing their job and getting paid. Wow. And getting paid $125,000 for a city councilor? Give me a break. Give me a break. You know what the state reps in Maine and New Hampshire basically volunteer. I think they get less than $200 a year. But they don't meet all the time to sit out and waste and squander your money. Maybe we should adopt that system, right? Give them what they're worth. It was what I saw the other day, that hearing down, it was disgraceful. It's like watching children, even though it was in the school department, you'd think you were in some some kindergarten. It's disgraceful. Disgraceful. Gentlemen, I've got about a minute. Any closing remarks? And please continue to listen. Darren Howell is going to call in. He's going to need some help with the Toys for Tots drive. I've volunteered my services, but they've got a small window to get the need out there. Need some all hands on decks. But any closing remarks on this issue?
Yeah, it's like, they should advertise the hearing more and then try to get more people to get to those hearings. And that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So people should actually watch their government at work, watch their representatives at work.
I agree. And listen, if they want to, if they think it interrupts Jerry Springer or Maury Povich, they'll be watching the same. So it's just at the city level. Gentlemen, thank you both. Appreciate you. Continue to listen. Again, thank you. We have some of the best listeners, best callers in the business, and we sure appreciate you. And we appreciate that feedback. Like I said, we're not afraid to take on folks who have a difference of opinion. That's what it's all about. That's healthy and respectful. And we appreciate you, gentlemen. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and continue to listen. Call back in if you like. All right, Pastor Haas. Man, it's just crazy how what we will accept. We will only accept what they'll only do what we allow them to do to us. And if we continue down this road, like they said, this really is the definition of an insanity, and we got to push back. Yeah, you pay a price for speaking out, but people paid a bigger price than that for me to have this opportunity to speak out, and I'll be daggone if I'm not going to utilize it. So, with that said, I think we're our required station ID. Station break. You've been listening to At the Round Table with Manly. I'm your host, Larry Ellison. Like I said, the doctor is he's literally making a house call today at home, so he is not with us this morning, but like I said, he's hammering away somewhere else, literally. We're gonna take our break and we'll be right back.
Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard.